Albert Einstein, a name that resonates through the halls of science, culture, and human imagination, represents more than equations, wild hair, or iconic photographs. He is the symbol of curiosity unbound, of a mind fearless enough to challenge the very fabric of reality. But to understand the genius, one must first understand the boy, the child who stared silently at the world, wondering about things unseen, unheard, and yet profoundly felt. Albert Einstein's story begins on March 14, 1879, in the small German city of Ulm, in a modest house on Bahnhofstrasse, where a boy was born into a Jewish family who valued education, culture, and quiet reflection. His father, Hermann Einstein, was a struggling engineer and salesman with ambitions and vision that often exceeded his means, while his mother, Pauline Koch, was a deeply musical woman who played piano with passion and discipline. This combination of logic, technical skill, and artistic sensitivity created the environment in which Albert's mind would first awaken. Albert was not like other children. He did not speak fluently until the age of 3. He was slow, deliberate, and deeply contemplative. Family members worried, neighbors whispered doubts about his intelligence, and his own self-confidence grew unevenly under the weight of expectation. Yet, what appeared as delay was simply a mind taking its time to observe, to process, and to absorb. He was not merely learning words, he was learning patterns, relationships, and the structure of the world around him. This careful observation would become the foundation of his unique approach to thinking, an approach that valued depth over speed, understanding over rote repetition. One defining moment in young Einstein's life occurred at the age of 5, a moment that would echo through his consciousness for the rest of his life. While bedridden with illness, his father showed him a small magnetic compass. The needle, seemingly alive, pointed always north, regardless of how the box was turned. The idea that an invisible force governed the world, that unseen principles dictated motion and direction, struck him with a mixture of awe, fear, and fascination. He would later write that the experience was transformative, that it instilled in him a sense of wonder and a determination to seek the invisible laws underlying all natural phenomena. The compass became more than an instrument, it became a symbol of the unknown, a prompt that questions themselves could be more profound than answers. Einstein's childhood was marked by both curiosity and tension. In Munich, he attended the Luitpold Gymnasium, an authoritarian institution emphasizing memorization, discipline, and obedience. The strict teachers expected conformity and repetitive learning, but Albert had little patience for routine. He resisted rote exercises, detested authoritarianism, and struggled with the militaristic environment. He was at odds with the school system, not because he was incapable, but because he demanded freedom to explore and understand in his own way. One teacher labeled him lazy and insubordinate, another dismissed him entirely. Yet outside the classroom, Albert's mind flourished. He immersed himself in books on mathematics, physics, and philosophy, reading Euclid, Kant, and the works of other thinkers who challenged the ordinary perception of the world. Geometry, in particular, captivated him. He later described Euclid's Elements as a sacred text, a doorway into rational, universal truths. Music became another pillar of young Einstein's inner life. His mother's influence introduced him to the violin, and soon Albert was practicing for hours, losing himself in melodies that spoke to him in a language beyond words. He often remarked that music helped him think, providing a rhythm and harmony that mirrored the logical patterns he sought in mathematics and physics. These early interactions with sound, pattern, and structure nurtured a mind capable of seeing the world in terms of relationships, systems, and abstract beauty, a mind that would later imagine universes where time and space could bend and twist. When Einstein was 15, his father's business faced financial collapse. Hermann moved the family to Italy, leaving Albert temporarily behind in Munich to complete his education. These months were among the most difficult of his childhood. He felt trapped, abandoned, and frustrated, alienated from a system that could not accommodate his unconventional mind. But this period also taught resilience. Eventually, Albert walked away from school entirely, joining his family in Italy and renouncing his German citizenship. For several years, he was stateless, a young man with no country, yet with a mind liberated from conventional boundaries. This act of rebellion and independence would become a defining characteristic of his life. Albert Einstein did not follow the path others prescribed, he carved his own. In Switzerland, he enrolled at the Swiss Federal Polytechnic in Zurich, one of the few institutions willing to tolerate and nurture his unconventional approach. There, he excelled in mathematics and physics but continued to clash with professors who insisted on rote learning. He skipped lectures that he found irrelevant, preferring instead to study independently and follow his curiosity wherever it led. His brilliance was clear to some, terrifying or confusing to others. He had a restless energy, an impatience with authority, and a vision for the world that could not be confined by lecture halls or curricula. It was also in Zurich that Einstein met Mileva Marić, a brilliant physics student whose intelligence, ambition, and determination matched his own. Their connection went beyond friendship. It became a partnership of mind and spirit. They spent hours discussing complex problems, debating the nature of light and matter, and exploring theories together. Mileva became not just a companion but a collaborator in Einstein's early intellectual journey. Their relationship, however, was fraught with tension, social pressure, and later, heartbreak. In many ways, Mileva represented both inspiration and challenge, pushing Einstein to expand his thinking while also introducing emotional complexity into his life. After graduating in 1900, Einstein faced a harsh reality. Despite his genius, he could not secure a position at a university. Professors dismissed him as undisciplined, unconventional, and difficult. He applied for teaching positions across Europe but received repeated rejections. For 2 long years he struggled with poverty, uncertainty, and the growing pressures of adult life. Yet even in hardship, Einstein's mind remained active. He continued reading, thinking, and imagining. He wrote essays, explored abstract concepts, and pondered questions that most adults never considered. Finally, in 1902, through the recommendation of a family friend, Einstein secured a position at the Swiss Patent Office in Bern. The work was ordinary, reviewing patents for technical devices, checking specifications, and verifying originality. For most people, such a job would be limiting. But for Einstein, it was liberating. The patent office gave him the structure to survive financially and the mental space to explore theoretical ideas. In the quiet of the office, between mundane duties, he conducted what he called thought experiments, mental simulations that would eventually form the foundation of modern physics. He imagined what it would be like to ride alongside a beam of light, to chase photons through space. He considered clocks on moving trains, pondering how time might change as speed approached the ultimate limit, the speed of light. He thought about gravity not as a force but as a curvature in the fabric of space and time. These were not idle fantasies. They were rigorous, disciplined inquiries into the nature of reality itself. The humble patent office became his laboratory, the confines of bureaucracy a canvas upon which he could project the visions of a revolutionary mind. And then came 1905, the year that would forever alter the world of physics. Known today as his Annus Mirabilis, his miracle year, Einstein published 4 seminal papers that challenged centuries of scientific understanding. The first explored the photoelectric effect, demonstrating that light behaves as discrete particles called photons. The second provided an explanation for Brownian motion, offering empirical proof of the existence of atoms and molecules. The third introduced the special theory of relativity, asserting that time, space, and simultaneity are relative to the observer's frame of reference. The fourth paper produced the most famous equation in human history, E equals mc squared, revealing that mass and energy are fundamentally equivalent. These papers were initially met with curiosity and skepticism, yet they soon shook the foundations of physics, establishing Einstein as a formidable scientific voice. Despite this breakthrough, Einstein remained largely unknown outside academic circles. He continued to work at the patent office, riding his bicycle to work, lost in thought, unconcerned with fame or recognition. His mind, however, was restless, always probing further, seeking the next insight that would unveil the deeper structure of the cosmos. After leaving school in Germany and finding temporary refuge in Switzerland, Albert Einstein's life entered a period of both struggle and profound intellectual growth. In Zurich, at the Swiss Federal Polytechnic, he found a space that allowed his unconventional mind to breathe. He continued to resist formal instruction, preferring independent study and the pursuit of ideas that fascinated him. Unlike many of his peers, he was not content with memorizing formulas or obeying rigid classroom rules. He was interested in understanding the why, not the how, seeking patterns and relationships that underpinned reality itself. His professors sometimes viewed him with suspicion, some even warning that he lacked discipline, yet his brilliance could not be denied. During these formative years, he met Mileva Marić, a Serbian student who would become the most significant intellectual companion of his youth. Mileva was not merely a romantic interest, she was a formidable mind in her own right. Their bond was forged in the fires of curiosity, debates about the nature of light, the behavior of matter, and the possibilities of space and time. They studied together, often late into the night, walking along rivers in Zurich, sharing notebooks filled with equations and ideas. In many ways, Mileva helped shape the young Einstein, encouraging him to clarify his thoughts and challenge his own assumptions. Yet, their relationship was not without tension. It was a mixture of deep affection, intellectual rivalry, and emotional complexity that foreshadowed the difficulties they would later face as adults. After graduation, Einstein's life faced harsh realities. He expected to find an academic position, to join a university, to be recognized for his brilliance. But the world was not ready for a young man who defied convention. Professors dismissed him, citing his rebellious nature, lack of formal recommendations, and perceived disregard for protocol. Doors closed repeatedly. He applied across Europe, sending letters to universities in Germany, Switzerland, and beyond, only to face polite rejections. For 2 years he wandered through uncertainty, surviving on support from family and friends. These were years of personal frustration, isolation, and reflection, yet they were also years in which his mind deepened its understanding of the universe. Then in 1902, a lifeline appeared, a position as a technical assistant at the Swiss Patent Office in Bern. On the surface, the job was ordinary, reviewing patent applications, examining inventions, and ensuring technical originality. But for Einstein, the office became a sanctuary. The repetitive, structured work allowed his mind to roam freely. While reviewing applications for electromagnetic devices or mechanical tools, he often contemplated the very principles underlying motion, energy, and light. The patent office was not a limitation, it was an incubator for his genius. It was here, in the quiet and predictability of routine, that Einstein began performing the thought experiments that would revolutionize physics. These mental experiments were his laboratory. He imagined riding alongside a beam of light, visualizing the experience in detail. He considered what would happen to time, space, and mass if one approached the speed of light. He visualized clocks on moving trains, pondered the flow of time, and imagined the curvature of space itself. While the world outside remained largely unaware, Einstein was quietly sketching the architecture of reality in his mind. These exercises required no physical apparatus, no laboratory, only imagination and disciplined logic. It was a radical departure from traditional science, yet it was profoundly effective. And then, in 1905, everything changed. At the age of 26, still employed at the patent office, Einstein published 4 groundbreaking papers in the Annalen der Physik, a respected German scientific journal. The first addressed the photoelectric effect, proving that light could behave as particles, later called photons. The second explained Brownian motion, offering empirical support for the existence of atoms. The third introduced the special theory of relativity, asserting that time and space were not absolute, but relative to the observer's frame of reference. The fourth contained the most famous equation in human history, E equals mc squared, revealing the equivalence of mass and energy. These papers were revolutionary. The academic world was stunned. The intellectual landscape of physics was transformed almost overnight. Despite the monumental nature of his discoveries, Einstein remained largely anonymous outside academic circles. He continued riding his bicycle to work, maintaining a simple life, and focusing intently on thought experiments. His fame was limited to scientific journals, yet his mind was already moving toward new horizons. He began to consider gravitation not as a force acting at a distance as Newton had described, but as a warping of the very fabric of spacetime. This idea would take years to formalize, but it represented the bold, visionary thinking that characterized his approach to science. Meanwhile, Einstein's personal life was evolving in parallel. He married Mileva Marić in 1903, and the couple had their first child, Hans Albert, in 1904. The early years of their marriage were filled with hope, intellectual collaboration, and dreams of shared accomplishment. However, tensions gradually surfaced. Einstein's relentless dedication to his work often left Mileva feeling isolated. His intense focus, while necessary for groundbreaking research, created distance in their emotional lives. The demands of survival, parenting, and societal pressures added complexity to their partnership. A second son, Eduard, was born in 1910, but the marriage continued to strain under the weight of these competing pressures. By 1909, Einstein's career took a decisive turn. Universities, recognizing his brilliance, finally offered him academic positions. He left the patent office and became a lecturer at the University of Zurich. His reputation continued to grow. He moved on to Prague in 1911, where he held a professorship and began expanding his work on gravitation. Yet even as his professional life ascended, his marriage faced difficulties. Long absences, intellectual obsession, and differing personalities created emotional rifts. Mileva struggled with domestic responsibilities while also attempting to pursue her own scientific work, which was largely overshadowed by societal norms and the shadow of her husband's fame. Einstein's journey through the scientific world was accompanied by social and political turbulence in Europe. Anti-Semitism, nationalist fervor, and political instability were rising, creating an environment that would later force him to leave Germany permanently. Even in Switzerland, he faced skepticism and rivalry within the scientific community. Critics questioned the validity of his theories, and some peers dismissed him as eccentric. Yet Einstein remained undeterred. He trusted his reasoning, his intuition, and his disciplined thought experiments more than the opinions of others. During this period, he also began corresponding and debating with other leading scientists of the time. Max Planck, Hendrik Lorentz, and Marcel Grossmann became key figures in his intellectual circle. These interactions helped refine his ideas, especially in the realm of gravitation and the mathematical structures underlying relativity. Einstein valued collaboration and mentorship selectively, choosing thinkers who respected the integrity of his independent approach rather than those who demanded conformity. The years from 1905 to 1915 were a crucible of intellectual development. While the special theory of relativity had established him as a rising star, Einstein's ambition extended far beyond the principles of motion and light. He sought a unified understanding of the cosmos, a framework that could explain gravitation, electromagnetism, and the deepest mechanics of the universe. He wrote tirelessly, studied complex mathematical formulations, and experimented with conceptual models. Often, he would work late into the night, pacing his room, scribbling equations on scraps of paper, or staring out windows in contemplation. His life was increasingly defined by thought, imagination, and relentless curiosity. Yet, amid this intellectual intensity, his personal life continued to complicate. By 1914, Einstein moved to Berlin to accept a prestigious position at the Prussian Academy of Sciences. The move was professionally transformative but personally tumultuous. The distance from Mileva, the pressures of academic leadership, and the growing fame created emotional friction. The marriage deteriorated further, eventually leading to separation and divorce in 1919. These personal struggles did not halt his scientific achievements. If anything, they underscored the human complexity behind the genius, revealing a man who balanced extraordinary intellectual pursuit with ordinary human vulnerability. Throughout these years, Einstein's approach to life and science was marked by a consistent philosophy: curiosity, imagination, and the courage to defy convention. He once wrote, "Imagination is more important than knowledge. For knowledge is limited, whereas imagination embraces the entire world." This principle guided both his personal and professional choices, enabling him to explore ideas that others deemed impossible or nonsensical. It was this mindset that would soon lead to his crowning achievement, the general theory of relativity. By 1915, after a decade of relentless work, Einstein completed the general theory of relativity, a revolutionary framework redefining gravity as the curvature of space and time rather than a mere force. The theory predicted phenomena so counterintuitive that many scientists initially doubted it. Yet Einstein's meticulous mathematical derivation and deep conceptual insight provided the proof necessary to challenge centuries of Newtonian physics. The world was on the cusp of recognizing a new kind of genius, one whose understanding of reality itself would change forever. By 1915, Albert Einstein had spent a decade building a foundation of ideas that would culminate in one of the most extraordinary scientific achievements in human history. His general theory of relativity was complete, a radical reimagining of gravity, space, and time. In this theory, mass and energy did not merely exist within space. They shaped it, bending the very fabric of the universe. A planet orbited not because an invisible force pulled it along a path as Newton had taught, but because space itself curved around massive objects, guiding the planet's motion naturally along this warped geometry. To the ordinary mind, this was almost incomprehensible. To Einstein, it was elegant, beautiful, and logical, a reflection of nature's hidden order. Yet, for all its brilliance, the theory needed proof. Predictions had to be confirmed by observation. In 1919, an extraordinary opportunity arrived. A solar eclipse provided the perfect test. Starlight passing near the sun would be deflected by the sun's gravity, bending along the curves of spacetime as Einstein's equations predicted. British astronomer Sir Arthur Eddington led an expedition to observe this phenomenon. When the results came in, they confirmed Einstein's predictions. The world was stunned. Newspapers across Europe and the Americas proclaimed that a new genius had emerged. Albert Einstein, once a quiet patent clerk, had become a global sensation almost overnight. Einstein's life changed dramatically. He traveled across Europe, lecturing to audiences eager to hear from the man who had redefined reality itself. Scientists debated his ideas fervently, while the public, fascinated by the image of the wild-haired, thoughtful genius, embraced him as a cultural icon. Magazines and newspapers carried his portrait. His theories were discussed in cafes, salons, and universities. Even the ordinary citizen felt connected to his work, sensing that he had glimpsed something extraordinary about the world they inhabited. With fame came complexity. Einstein's personal life, already strained, faced new pressures. His marriage to Mileva Marić had ended in divorce in 1919, leaving him with a sense of both liberation and loss. Their children, Hans Albert and Eduard, remained part of his life, but the emotional distance weighed heavily. Einstein had moved to Berlin for a prestigious academic position, leaving behind much of his personal comfort for the rigors of scientific responsibility. Yet, he continued to live simply, valuing thought and imagination over luxury or status. During these years, Einstein also became deeply aware of the social and political turbulence surrounding him. Germany, emerging from the devastation of World War I, was steeped in economic hardship, political extremism, and growing anti-Semitism. Einstein, a Jewish intellectual and outspoken advocate of pacifism, increasingly found himself at odds with rising nationalist forces. He spoke against militarism and advocated for international cooperation, using his fame as a platform to address ethical as well as scientific issues. Einstein's influence extended beyond science. He became a public intellectual, corresponding with political leaders, engaging with philosophers, and connecting with cultural figures. His vision of a better world, guided by reason, compassion, and imagination, inspired countless individuals. Yet he remained acutely aware of the dangers posed by ignorance, prejudice, and the misuse of power. He wrote, "The world is a dangerous place not because of those who do evil but because of those who look on and do nothing." His words, grounded in both personal experience and scientific understanding, reflected the moral compass that guided him even as the world around him descended into turmoil. By the early 1930s, the rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party made Germany increasingly hostile to Einstein and his ideals. Threatened by his Jewish heritage and outspoken views, he realized he could not safely remain in his homeland. In 1933, he made the difficult decision to leave Germany permanently, accepting a position at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, New Jersey. This marked the beginning of a new chapter, a life as a refugee, a thinker in exile, and a moral voice in a world on the brink of disaster. In the United States, Einstein continued to work on theoretical physics while also engaging with pressing global issues. He focused on the pursuit of a unified field theory, an ambitious effort to combine gravity, electromagnetism, and the other fundamental forces of nature into a single mathematical framework. Though he never completed this quest, it exemplified his lifelong commitment to understanding the deepest structures of reality. World events, however, intervened in ways Einstein could not ignore. With the outbreak of World War II and the threat of Nazi Germany developing nuclear weapons, Einstein faced a moral dilemma. Though he was a pacifist, he co-signed a letter to President Franklin D. Roosevelt, urging the United States to investigate atomic research. This letter helped catalyze the Manhattan Project. While he did not participate in the development of the bomb, he was haunted by the consequences of unleashing nuclear power. After the war, he became a prominent advocate for nuclear disarmament, speaking out tirelessly against the use of atomic weapons and warning of the perils of unchecked technological power. Even amid global crises, Einstein's personal habits reflected a deep human simplicity. He loved sailing, walking in nature, and playing the violin. He maintained a playful sense of humor, delighting in jokes and paradoxes. Children adored him, drawn to his warmth, gentleness, and the sense that he valued curiosity over authority. He often emphasized that imagination and wonder were as crucial to progress as knowledge itself, stating repeatedly, "The important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing." Einstein's fame continued to grow throughout the 1930s and 1940s. He became a symbol not only of scientific achievement but of moral courage, intellectual independence, and the pursuit of truth. He spoke out against racism, aligning himself with the civil rights movement in the United States long before it became mainstream. He met with leaders such as W.E.B. Du Bois and Paul Robeson, supporting the fight for equality and justice. In these endeavors, Einstein demonstrated that his genius was not limited to theoretical physics. It extended to the realm of human ethics, social responsibility, and global vision. Despite these commitments, Einstein remained a relentless thinker. He spent hours immersed in thought, often late into the night, exploring mathematical structures and theoretical models. He was fascinated by the mysteries of the universe, the behavior of light and gravity, the potential unification of physical forces, and the underlying simplicity that might govern all complex phenomena. Even as he aged, his intellectual energy remained prodigious, fueled by curiosity, imagination, and an unshakable belief that understanding could be achieved through persistent effort. By the mid-1940s, Einstein had become a living legend. Newspapers referred to him as the greatest genius of the century. Yet he remained self-effacing, often rejecting the label of genius. He preferred to identify simply as a curious individual, a man driven by questions rather than accolades. His humility, combined with his extraordinary intellect, made him both approachable and inspirational to scientists and laypeople alike. The post-war era brought new challenges and opportunities. Einstein continued to advocate for peace and global cooperation. He called for the creation of supranational institutions to prevent future conflicts and address the dangers posed by nationalism and militarism. He warned that technological advancement without moral and ethical guidance could lead to catastrophe. At the same time, he remained committed to the pursuit of fundamental science, tirelessly exploring equations, models, and theoretical possibilities. Even in his personal life, Einstein found moments of joy. He cherished walks along Princeton's tree-lined paths, afternoons playing violin, and quiet reflections by his study window. He enjoyed correspondence with friends and students, often engaging in debates about philosophy, ethics, and the future of science. These moments reveal a man who was deeply human, with passions, humor, and vulnerabilities that balanced his prodigious intellect. Einstein's work during this period also reflected his ongoing commitment to collaboration and dialogue. He maintained correspondence with leading scientists, including Niels Bohr, Werner Heisenberg, and Erwin Schrödinger. While he sometimes disagreed vehemently, famously disputing aspects of quantum mechanics, he never abandoned the pursuit of truth. His debates were rigorous, intellectual, and guided by curiosity rather than ego. This approach cemented his reputation not only as a brilliant scientist but as a model of thoughtful inquiry and disciplined reasoning. By the time he entered the 1950s, Einstein was an elder statesman of science. He had witnessed the transformation of the world, the rise and fall of empires, the devastation of wars, and the dawn of the nuclear age. Yet he remained steadfast in his belief that humanity could navigate these challenges through reason, imagination, and ethical responsibility. He continued writing, lecturing, and exploring theoretical problems, embodying the principle that learning and curiosity have no age limit. Albert Einstein's life during these years demonstrates the inseparable connection between intellect and humanity. His genius was not merely the product of equations and theories. It was shaped by experience, empathy, and a relentless desire to understand both the universe and the moral responsibilities of those who inhabit it. He embodied the idea that the pursuit of knowledge carries with it a duty to consider its consequences and to use it wisely for the benefit of humanity. Albert Einstein's final years were marked by quiet reflection, ongoing scientific exploration, and a profound engagement with the moral and ethical challenges of a rapidly changing world. After relocating to the United States in 1933 to escape the growing dangers of Nazi Germany, he settled at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, New Jersey. There, he found both the stability to continue his work and a community of brilliant minds with whom he could exchange ideas. Unlike the bustling academic environments of Europe, Princeton provided a serene atmosphere where thought could unfold without distraction, where the world of equations and ideas took precedence over bureaucracy and acclaim. Even in this tranquil setting, Einstein remained acutely aware of the turbulent times. The shadow of World War II loomed large, and the advent of nuclear technology posed moral dilemmas he could not ignore. Though a lifelong pacifist, he recognized the potential threat posed by Nazi Germany's pursuit of nuclear weapons. It was in this context that he co-signed a letter to President Franklin D. Roosevelt in 1939, warning that Germany could develop atomic bombs and urging the United States to accelerate its research. This letter played a pivotal role in initiating the Manhattan Project, though Einstein himself did not participate in the development of nuclear weapons. The moral consequences weighed heavily on him, leading him to become one of the most vocal advocates for peace, disarmament, and the responsible use of science in the post-war era. Despite his global fame, Einstein remained remarkably humble. He lived simply, often wearing casual clothes, favoring comfort over formality, and maintaining a daily routine of walking, sailing, and playing the violin. These activities were not mere pastimes. They were sources of inspiration, reflection, and balance. Music, in particular, remained a central aspect of his life. He once remarked that he thought in music as much as in words or mathematical symbols, and that musical intuition often guided his scientific imagination. For Einstein, the harmony of a melody mirrored the elegance he sought in the laws of the universe. Einstein's engagement with social justice was as unwavering as his commitment to science. He spoke publicly against racial segregation in the United States long before it became a mainstream concern, aligning himself with African American intellectuals and activists. He befriended figures like W.E.B. Du Bois and Paul Robeson, using his platform to advocate for equality and human dignity. He condemned tyranny and oppression wherever he saw it, insisting that intellect alone was insufficient without a moral compass. His statements often bridged science and ethics, reflecting a worldview in which knowledge and conscience were inseparable. While he championed human rights and peace, Einstein never ceased to explore the mysteries of the cosmos. He continued searching for a unified field theory, a single mathematical framework that could reconcile gravity, electromagnetism, and the other fundamental forces of nature. This quest was emblematic of his intellectual courage. He was willing to pursue ideas that others deemed unattainable, trusting in the power of reason and imagination to uncover truth. Though he did not succeed in completing this unified theory, his work laid the groundwork for future generations of physicists and inspired countless inquiries into the nature of reality. Even in the face of immense fame and responsibility, Einstein valued curiosity and wonder above all. He maintained a playful sense of humor, loved engaging with young minds, and enjoyed thought experiments that blurred the lines between imagination and rigorous logic. He often reminded students and the public that genius is not the product of innate talent alone, but of relentless curiosity, dedication, and the courage to question assumptions. "I have no special talent," he famously said. "I am only passionately curious." These words encapsulate the essence of his life philosophy, that the pursuit of understanding, motivated by wonder and inquiry, is both noble and transformative. Einstein's final years were also marked by reflection on mortality, the legacy of human knowledge, and the impermanence of life. He often spoke about the beauty of the universe and the privilege of witnessing its mysteries, but he remained acutely aware that knowledge is provisional, subject to revision and expansion. He emphasized the importance of humility in science and in life, insisting that the mind must remain open, flexible, and willing to embrace new perspectives. Even as his fame grew to mythical proportions, he consistently resisted the cult of personality, preferring instead to let his ideas and contributions speak for themselves. On April 18, 1955, Albert Einstein passed away at the age of 76 in Princeton. True to his character, he requested that his body be cremated and his ashes scattered in secret, avoiding the creation of a shrine or monument. His passing marked the end of a life that had profoundly influenced both science and society, yet his ideas, insights, and moral vision continue to resonate. The world remembers not only the physicist who redefined space and time but also the humanist who championed reason, compassion, and curiosity as guiding principles. Even after his death, Einstein's legacy continued to provoke fascination. His brain was preserved by pathologist Thomas Harvey, leading to decades of study and controversy. Analyses revealed unusual features such as an enlarged inferior parietal region associated with spatial and mathematical reasoning, but Einstein's genius cannot be reduced to anatomy alone. It was the combination of curiosity, imagination, perseverance, and ethical awareness that made him extraordinary. His life exemplifies how human intelligence, guided by moral insight and insatiable curiosity, can illuminate the world and inspire generations. Einstein's contributions to science are foundational. The special and general theories of relativity underpin modern physics, from understanding black holes to guiding the satellites that power GPS technology. His early work on the photoelectric effect catalyzed quantum mechanics, which today informs everything from semiconductors to lasers. Yet, beyond formulas and experiments, Einstein's true legacy is cultural and philosophical. He symbolizes the power of thinking differently, the courage to challenge orthodoxy, and the beauty of exploring questions that may initially seem impossible. Throughout his life, Einstein remained deeply human. He experienced love and loss, joy and frustration, failure and triumph. He grappled with moral dilemmas, personal challenges, and the complexities of fame. Yet he navigated these experiences with curiosity, integrity, and imagination, modeling a form of genius that is inseparable from the human spirit. He demonstrated that intellectual achievement and moral responsibility are intertwined, that creativity requires both rigorous discipline and playful exploration, and that the pursuit of knowledge is a lifelong journey rather than a final destination. Einstein's story teaches that genius is not simply the accumulation of knowledge. It is the ability to see differently, to ask questions that others cannot, and to persist in the face of doubt, hardship, or skepticism. It reminds us that curiosity, imagination, and courage are essential to human progress, that science and ethics must coexist, and that understanding the universe is inseparable from understanding ourselves. Albert Einstein did not merely change the way we see the cosmos, he changed the way we see ourselves. He exemplified the belief that the pursuit of truth, guided by wonder and moral awareness, can illuminate the human condition. His life remains a testament to the extraordinary potential of the mind, tempered by humility, compassion, and unending curiosity. In the words of the man himself, "The important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing." Einstein's legacy endures not just in scientific papers, equations, or textbooks, but in the hearts and minds of those who dare to wonder, to imagine, and to seek truth beyond the boundaries of convention. He reminds us that the universe is vast, mysterious, and filled with questions, and that the most profound discoveries often begin with the simple act of asking why. Albert Einstein's story, from a quiet, delayed-speaking child in Ulm to the most celebrated genius of the 20th century, is a testament to human potential. It is the story of curiosity, persistence, and imagination, of triumph over adversity, and the courage to follow one's mind wherever it leads. It is the real story behind a genius, a story that continues to inspire, guide, and illuminate the journey of humanity toward understanding itself and the cosmos it inhabits.